Alrighty, 2014 Subaru, guys. Come in for a tune-up. I ended up putting an engine in it. Stick around to find out why. Alright, so this is what we got going on today. A little bit of Subaru action here. I got this car, has a check engine light on. Looked at it a couple weeks ago. Didn't really film any of it, but more or less it had a two codes in it, really. One for this cam actuator solenoid. You could see it right here. I can't remember the code. I want to say it was like a P0012, I think, or a P0011, something like that, something along those lines. It did also have a P0302, which is a misfire on cylinder 2, but that code at that time was history. So I kind of focused my interests on the cam solenoid there. But then afterwards, the customer said that the check engine light came back on, so I decided to relook at it. So we're looking back into it here. The cam solenoid code is no longer there, but the P0300 or the 302 came back. So it does seem to have a low idle too when it gets warm, and I'm thinking that's because of a misfire. Not really too familiar with these Subarus, but I could just about figure anything out. So basically what I'm doing, this car is 140-some thousand miles. We're going to do a tune-up and put a coil on number 2. I have no idea how hard this is going to be on one of these boxer engines. Because if you look, the coil is like way down there, like where my light's shining. You can kind of see that 10mm bolt down there. And then it's kind of close to the frame rail, so that'll be interesting to get out. This one up here, I can't get you a good view at it. There you go, a little bit. You can kind of see it and see the distance there. But so that's about it. Let's get started. There it is, that wasn't too bad. Interesting. The boot is pretty flexible, so I'm thinking I shouldn't have a problem getting it out of there. I was kind of concerned about that. One thing I'll say about anything Japanese, it's the bolts are extremely tight at first, but as soon as you crack them loose, you can wind them right out with your fingers. And it's just like anything Japanese is like that. I don't know if they make really good bolts or something. Even the Duramax, everything on that thing, it's the same way. Unless it's like an exhaust bolt or something that's rusty. I mean, if you look, the hardware is just like good quality. I don't know. But it just winds right out with your fingers. Okay, so just a little tip here. This is kind of the setup I had to use, was two 1-inch extensions to get into there. But just a little note, I love these Wobble Plus extensions. Not paid by Snap-on to say this, but I mean, these are like my absolute favorite thing. It's just like, especially doing tune-up, doing a tune-up on a 5.3, anything. You know, your truck, your Subaru. It's just, it gives you like just that little bit of an advantage. You can just kind of weasel it in there, and it's almost like a swivel. You make everything a swivel socket. The nice thing about the Plus ones is you see that second joint up there. All you do is push it down. Now it's a normal extension. These things are awesome. Alright guys, so I got the plugs installed into this thing. Started it up and basically noticed that it's still misfiring. So the next step I'm going to take here is, I know it's a cylinder 2 misfire. So the reason I know that is, one, because I have a scan tool, but if you don't have a scan tool, what you could do is, while it's running, get down in there. See, there's one of the coils there. I believe that's number 4. Number 2 is up here. You unplug it while it's running and see basically if it makes a difference or not. And I don't know if you've already noticed or not, but I don't think a fuel injector is bad in this thing. It just doesn't seem like a fuel injector kind of issue. So I want to check compression. So I just hooked my compression gauge here to it. I'm not really sure what it should be, but I'm betting it should be over 100 psi. Modern engine, easily over 100 psi. Some of the engines I check at work, if we're talking direct injected engines, I've seen them up over 180, 190. So let's just see what we end up with here. What do we got? Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm going to say we have some issue here. Whew. Less than 60. Goodness. Okay, well, I'd say we found our problem. That'd be why we have a misfire. Yeah. Yeah, man, that was like 58. 58 pounds. Oh boy. Okay, so I'd say we found our problem here. Let's see what the heck we want to do with this. Did the tune-up only because basically it had 146,000 miles on it. So customer just wanted to start there. Didn't want any diagnosis done. Just wanted me to put plugs in a coil pack on number 2 because they had a misfire. So, interesting. Okay guys, so as you can see, we're going to be putting an engine in this here Subaru. So I can't say that I've ever done one of these, so this ought to be interesting. But we got ourselves a nice quality used engine here, ready for install. This is actually probably one of the nicest junkyard engines I've really ever seen. It's just super clean, and it's not even like they pressure washed it or anything. It just looks legitimately clean. I mean, they unplugged the connectors. It's a Christmas miracle. It's really a Christmas miracle. Usually junkyards love to go hog wild. I mean, they even put caps on here and didn't cut the hoses or anything. And hot dog, this is unbelievable. So we're going to get started on this here. Hopefully it goes well. I guess we'll see how everything pans out. I've never actually put an engine in one of these, but it seems pretty straightforward. So I guess nothing to it, but just to do it, let's get her done. She don't like that very much. Shoop, shoop, doop, doop. Get out of there. Wow. That's absurdly tight. Holy cow. Whoa. Wow, Hulk Hogan himself tightened that up. Okay, so a little bit of an update here. So we got all kind of stuff disconnected here. Took the AC compressor off. We flipped her over there, like I said. And this AC compressor had a hook on it pretty conveniently, but I just ran the bolts back in it. We'll use that as a hoist. Other than that, just, you know, disconnecting, taking the electrical connectors off for some back air, getting ready. Don't want to undo the coolant hoses yet. I really want to save that for last. I want to go underneath the car first, or before that, and do everything I need to do underneath of there, so that way I'm not laying in coolant, because I'm doing this in the garage. So I don't want to have to lay in coolant while I'm doing this. Being a mechanic, I hate coolant. It's like laying in Kool-Aid. It's the stickiest, unbelievable stuff ever. I don't know. I don't know. But so we're gonna go. I'm kind of to the point where I feel like I want to start disconnecting the coolant hoses and stuff. But so that's telling me that I think I should maybe get the car up on some jack stands here, and get the wheels off of her. That way we could scoot on underneath of her, if you know what I mean. Take a look from the underside. Let's get this bad boy jacked up. I'll be digging old dang. Oh, found this bad boy alongside the road. Passed her on up, I think. There she is. What a beaut. Okay, so let's see if this thing's gonna want to separate or not. Try to get a pry bar. Man, there's like nowhere good to get into this. Wow, okay. I mean, you can see that or not, but it's already created a decent gap. That was easy enough. Oh, yeah. That's honestly probably one of the easier separations I've ever had. Usually the dowels are stuck in that daggone thing. But man, that separated right away. The torque converter looks like it's pulled away. Let's get the cherry picker over here. Okay, first things first, let's get this chain hooked up here. I don't know if you've seen on that other engine or not, but it has a seat belt on it. That's usually how a junkyard will send an engine, at least in my experience, basically, because it's something that they have laying around that's free that'll definitely lift it up. I'll probably use it to install it. I usually don't care to, just, I don't know. Something about fabric and lifting engines just doesn't seem right. But, now, we'll probably do it anyhow. Well, we've waited long enough. Literally, I'm about to pull the engine and I haven't drained a drop of coolant out of this. So I guess it's time for the mess. Let's see. Oh no. Oh no. Ew. What the hell? Looks like washer fluid. That's just odd. We'll lay out the red carpet. Or black carpet. See if we can get her on the old angle here. The angle of the angle. Alright guys, so as you can see, we got the engine out here. This is the old engine. Just something I was thinking of after I took the engine out when you were going to swap an engine. Something you want to really pay attention to in particular is if it's a junkyard engine. I guess it's with any engine though, but pay attention to your dowel pins. There's a dowel pin here and here. Well, sometimes those dowel pins will get stuck inside the transmission. So sometimes you'll go get, now this is our replacement engine here, and it just so happens to be the same scenario. See, we have our dowel pin here and our dowel pin here. And so this motor would easily go back in, but let's just play this scenario like one of these dowel pins was stuck inside the transmission. So our old engine was missing a dowel pin, but this new engine that we got had two. You'd be trying to line that thing up and you'd be fighting and cursing and, or, you know, wondering why it isn't going together. The gap between the engine and the transmission will not close. You know, after you're fighting and cursing and long nights and all this jazz, you know, ask me how I know. So just a little side note, anytime you're doing any engine swap, just double check where's your dowel pins at. So the next thing we're going to do here is I got some stuff to swap over from our old engine to our new engine, and then we're ready to dump it in. Like I said before, this engine that we got is in really good condition. It's pristine. Usually what I'll do is I'll swap the harness over from the original engine to this, our replacement, but man, this thing is actually really, really nice. The harness is in way better shape. I see nothing cut, damaged. So, I mean, they even, you know, they went ahead and disconnected our electrical connectors properly. So everything is in order. So I am just going to take a gamble here, and we're going to leave this harness and everything on here. It's going to save us a little bit of time. We'll do it that way instead of trying to swap all this over. Now, it's probably a little hard to see, but the engine's like real dirty, greasy. This thing has 140, 150 somewhere in there, 1,000 miles. So just we'll just make the decision to leave all that on there and go from there. So we'll get to swapping all this stuff, and we'll be ready to jam it in there. Alright guys, so I got all that swapped over. I don't know if you've seen most of it in a time lapse or whatever, but got it all swapped over. Not too many issues. That exhaust was a little bit of a pain because, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's like all one piece. So it's real hard. You got to line up both sides and they're all studs, and it was just a little bit of a pain. But other than that, everything went smooth. Got the old alternator swapped over, so everything's looking good. I don't see nothing else. Oh, and the one thing that I did find, I was saying on this whole video that they didn't cut nothing. The only thing I found cut was this, the fuel feed line, but that's no big deal. I'll just pop that off once we get her in the car. But I figured I'd mention that. But honestly, this is so far turned out to be a really good junkyard engine, as far as I could tell. So I did end up, as you've seen much earlier in the video, we put a new coil and 4 new spark plugs in this. So I did end up swapping that new coil over. Might as well have a brand new coil, at least one new coil in this thing. So I put it in the same location, just, you know, for posterity, we'll call it. And then I did end up re-swapping all 4 spark plugs, new spark plugs into this engine. And I'll say that this engine definitely seems a lot better shape. It's hard to do one-handed, but I can't turn this engine. Maybe a little bit. But, yeah. So the other engine, I don't know if you've seen or not, but when I was taking out the torque converter bolts, I just spun that over by hand. I literally put my hand here and was twisting it. Had all the spark plugs in it. So I never did end up taking another compression reading from this engine. We just had the misfire on number 2. It was so significantly low that, I mean, that had to be our issue. Never did end up checking another cylinder just to compare it to. But I'm kind of assuming the whole engine is just low compression all across the board. It's just kind of tired. From what the customer was telling me, he said it was burning oil like crazy. So probably a good idea just to do this replacement instead. So this is the engine bay. We'll lots and lots of room in here. It's unbelievable how open these are. I've never really worked on many of these. I know I keep saying that, but very open. Like there's literally like nothing left. It's just a square box. But so anyhow, we'll get to throwing this bad boy in there and hopefully have this done here real shortly. getting closer. Alright, so I spent a little time. I didn't record too much of putting it back together because you guys kind of seen how I took it apart. It's basically reverse order. Nothing real different about what I did. So I figured I wouldn't really record much of that and I was kind of trying to get it done a little bit. Kind of tired of seeing this thing in my garage. But we're down to stuffing the radiator in here and the condenser and all that. I did end up having to take all that stuff out. So it's kind of unavoidable. You couldn't bring the engine forward enough to let it come up and out with the rad and condenser in the way, so we just had to end up removing that. But we're real close to getting her fired up. There ain't much left, so I'll put this here rad and condenser in and hopefully we'll see some smoke fly. The only thing I really have to do here is, before I bolt this really in, is I'm going to hook up this one AC line that I had to take off, just because it's easier to get to now than as if I bolted it in. So we'll do that. And the other thing that I did was I ended up turning the hose clamp for this lower rad hose. For whatever reason, anytime I ever take anything apart, and you always want to think there's some guy at the factory turning that clamp so it's a son of a gun to get to for the mechanic, but cars aren't assembled really like that. It's just probably easier at the assembly plant to put a clamp on a certain way, but it is hard to get to, so I readjusted that so I could easily get to it from up here rather than crawling underneath, and there's like a big pan in the way and stuff. Like a, I don't know what you call it, like a catch pan or whatever. But it's in the road, so. Oh my, already making a mess. Alright, so we got her about licked. There's a few odds and ends, some covers and stuff to put on yet, but let's see if it runs, make sure that's all squared away. We got the coolant topped off for now. I did dump fresh oil in it and put a new filter on it. I forgot to film that, but it does have brand new oil in it, ready to go. So I think we are ready for our first startup. It's running. It's definitely blowing the smoke off that exhaust. I got her all oily and coolant, but it sounds good. It sounds quiet. got a little bit of a high idle, and I know these things are kind of finicky. I was kind of having an issue with it before we put the engine in it. I know there's a relearn procedure for it. I didn't do it. I just want to make sure it runs. We'll disconnect our battery and worry about the idle in a little bit. I just want to make sure it was okay. But it sounds real good. Engine's quiet. No real lights on the dash or anything. No warning lights or anything. So I'd say we're in the clear. And actually, it's idling very smoothly compared to what it was before. Before it was shaking and just had this odd sound to it for sure. Okay, so we got the car all buttoned up. I put all the beauty covers and everything back on it. Now we're going to take it for a little ride. Make sure everything's good. No overheating, no weird issues. Oh no. The sun is bright. Those brakes are definitely rusty. This thing's been out of commission for a little bit, and moisture collects on the rotors and causes rust, and man, it's crusty sounding. A few good stops will clean that right up, but other than that, the thing seems good. It's running great. Actually, I notice it's a lot more stable at idle, obviously because it probably doesn't have that misfire anymore. But it's a lot more peppier, a lot more responsive. It sounds better. It's just good all around, I think. This thing's got a new lease on life, I think. Okay, guys, just to wrap up this video here. So we had started off as an easy tune-up, turned into a whole engine replacement. That being said, this is the old engine here. We never did really investigate too much on what actually failed. We knew that something inside the engine failed. We could have dug a little deeper, but at that point, there's not really much to fixing this in the car anyhow. So the cost of the replacement engine just was a more economical fix for this. You basically had to tear the engine out if you had to put a cylinder head on it or piston rings, and you know the engine, this had 150,000 miles on it or so. So the better fix was just to put an engine in it, just more economical. We could easily fix this. But if you guys want to see me tear this apart or see, you know, what's going on inside this thing, you know, let me know in the comments below. It's something I'd definitely be willing to do. I'm trying to upload a little bit more videos, so if you guys have any video ideas, anything that I could possibly be doing, you know, put her down in the comments below.